Hello everyone, and welcome to a presentation of the PowerPoint that we gave at the Grantseekers meeting this past August. This is James Patterson, Community Foundation Grants Officer, and I'll just walk you through this fairly briefly. One of the first things I'd like to do is indicate that most everything that I talk about today that's in this presentation you're going to be able to find also in the grant guidelines for our community grants program. So to access those, as you can see, this is our website at cfnil.org. This is the community grants page, which you will find under grants on that page. And you click the community grants icon, you'll go here, and then you will, if you scroll down, you'll find the community grants guidelines right here. Just click that and you'll be able to review them right here. This is what they look like. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the PowerPoint presentation that we gave at that time. Yes, I am James. All right, so we did a number of things this over the summer. Took some time to gather some feedback from our grantees and applicants and to try to make some improvements to the grant process that we have. And there were a number of things that just came back to us again and again, and essentially came down to having an application that was easier to complete and also one that was shorter in many cases. So we made four principal improvements here. One is we tried to right size the application so that if you were asking for a certain size request or if you were asking for a particular type of request, the application would fit what you were looking for. So there are fewer questions that you will need to answer if you're asking for fewer dollars. And there are questions that will be contingent, as the third bullet point there shows, based upon what type of request it is. If it's a project that you're applying for, there'll be questions that would apply to that. If it's a piece of equipment, there'll be questions that would apply to that. So those are two of the big changes. We've also added an uploadable budget template. So there's not the long form that there used to be on the application that was vertical, and you would need to put in all of your budget information there. We have developed a new budget template, and I'll take a look at that a little bit more later and show you that actually during this presentation. And as sort of alluded to before, we have developed thresholds, dollar amounts where certain things change with the application process and the application itself. 15,000 is a threshold where fewer financial questions will be asked of you if you're applying for requests that are less than that. Another threshold is 75,000, and that's for requests that might fall within our Education Works strategy, which I'll also talk about briefly later, and of course is explained on our website as well. So let's move along here. One of the things you'll find that we have, in order to make this application work correctly, we had to define different support types or categories of support. The first is an event, and this is exactly what you would think it would be. We've sort of defined it as a charitable activity that it lasts from a day to a week. And then a project, on the other hand, would be a charitable activity that would last for a week to up to 3 years. And then with a project, it's something that's going to have a beginning and an end. You don't intend to do it forever. Then there's the program, which is similar to a project, except this is something that the intent is to continue to do this over time. And so we look at that as being 3 years and up. That doesn't mean that it absolutely will last forever, but it's something that you intend to continue to offer. And if you are offering the same program from year to year during like the school year, if it's, you know, you're working with the schools for an example, and even though there is that break in the summer, this would also fall under program because it does continue year after year. Well, you're probably wondering, well, where does equipment fit in? We will fund equipment. We will fund equipment, but the equipment has to be put into the context of one of these three areas. So it's either equipment that supports an event, it's equipment that supports a project or a program. So when you're doing your application, you want to describe the event, project, or program that the equipment is supporting. So, and that's where you'll draw your outcomes and much of the other information that we'd be asking for. One of the things that was also asked of us is to clarify our funding priorities, and so we took some time to take a look at that too. And what we came down with was two different strategies. One is clarifying our focus areas, and the other is to do some grant program consolidation. So let's take a look at the focus areas to begin with here. We have 6 different focus areas, as you can see right there. We look at arts and humanities. We're specifically interested in increasing access and availability to artistic experiences and cultural experiences. There is specific funding available in the arts and humanities for projects that help preserve or promote Rockford's history. Let's look at the education focus area. There, this is where the Education Works strategy is located. This I've mentioned before, and again, we'll talk more about it later. But we're looking at, and not just for Education Works, but for any of our education-focused grant requests, we are looking for charitable activities that would be creative and systemic, that, you know, would cause systemic change, that make a deep difference, and also promote the education of medical professionals. That's another area there. So we're looking at all types of education, but that's sort of a special area. We're looking at health as a focus area. We are looking at quality and access to health services, wellness in general, and then also more specifically medical research is an area that we're focused on funding. The area of human services are projects, programs, or events that will serve the basic needs of people in our community. And also projects that serve persons with disabilities in our community, specifically developmental disabilities, but also other types of disabilities. Now we do have, under this focus area, special funding, specific funding, I should say, that is available for Christian organizations that are providing basic needs funding or services. And we have specific funding for charitable activities that promote the inclusion of persons with disabilities within the overall community as well, within the human services focus area. Moving to the sustainable development focus area, here we're looking at projects, programs, events that promote social and economic development, that create quality, affordable, permanent housing and neighborhood development. So this isn't where we're looking at temporary housing. That would be more in the human services area. This is approaches that will build permanent housing opportunities for people in our community. And then also under sustainable development is sustaining our environment. So environment is another piece of that, and preservation, appreciation of, and understanding of the importance of our environment. So that fits under sustainable development. And the last one, certainly not least, is youth and families. And these are charitable activities that are going to strengthen families, that create pathways to self-sufficiency, and that focus perhaps on youth development or individual development, preventative strategies that have long-term effect as well. All right, so those are some of the focus areas that we're looking at, and the projects, programs, and events that you bring to us will be compared, I should say, to those areas to see how well they fit that. I mentioned that we consolidated many of our grant programs, and you probably sort of heard allusions to those particular grant programs when I was talking about the focus areas. So in this particular case, the Arts and Humanities grant program has been folded into the community grants, and that was obviously the Arts and Humanities focus area. The John W. Lundeen Historic Preservation Fund also folded in, and that is the specific funding for promoting Rockford's history. So if you're looking to apply for the Lundeen funds, you would go through the Arts and Humanities focus area. The Margaret K. Aldine Christian Ministry Fund is now accessed through the Human Services focus area. The United Cerebral Palsy of Black Hawk Region Fund is now accessed through the Human Services area. So all of those dollars are still accessible. You access them through the Community Grants Program and the focus areas that we mentioned. And again, all of this is in the grants guidelines that you'll find on our website. So you don't have to just remember it from this. Now you will notice that Schneider Electric LLC Management Grant Program is also listed up there. That has also been consolidated into the Community Grants Program. And the guidelines for that pretty well mirror our other focus areas. So if you're used to applying to Schneider Electric, then just apply to the focus area that is applicable for the charitable activity that you're involved in. So all of those dollars are still accessible. All right. Well, let's take just a minute to talk about Education Works, which is our new strategy, kind of a strategic program to try to help folks gain education for the point of gaining access to jobs and employment to support them and their families. So our tagline is Common Agendas, Common Sense. And the requests that would be looked at for Education Works are going to fall into 3 different categories. These are, the first one is place-based scholarship endowments, and this is really specific to educational institutions that are wanting to develop endowments that will provide scholarships to students who would go to their school from our region here. So that's what that is. But we, the second one there, after-school programs, we are looking to fund programs that support, that are contributive to the regular school activities, things that will go above and beyond what is currently offered within the school day, and complement those programs. So we say after school, and that also includes summer types of programs, things like that. And it could, for that matter, include programs that occurred before the school day began. But these are complementary types of programs to improve the education that our young people are getting. And then career awareness opportunities is also something we're looking at. We want to make sure that everyone has a good idea of what is out there and what they are best suited to devote their life to as their employment and vocation. So Education Works is a new strategy that we are pursuing. And taking a look at that, when we have requests that are over $75,000 in the education area, they would fall under Education Works for sure. But if they are, a request can be less than that and still be considered Education Works if they fall into those 3 areas that we talked about. We also will take a look at requests in other focus areas that are 75,000 or over. So those will be looked at. They won't have the same priority as those projects that are Education Works projects. That is truly our focus, but we will look at those. And if there's, we're not restricting ourselves, so that if there's something out there that's just fabulous that we know will make tremendous change in our community, we want to have the ability to be able to partner and work with organizations on that. So, and when I say 75,000, that includes, that's total funding. So if we're talking about a multiple year grant, if it's going to be for 3 years and it's 10,000 a year, that's 30,000 altogether. That's not over 75,000. So we're looking at the total amount. Okay, well, let's take a quick look here at eligibility for the Community Grants Program. And one of the things that has changed is tax status. We are now restricting applicants to those who are 501c3 organizations, religious organizations, or public college or university or units of government. Must be in those areas. We will not fund organizations that don't have one of those statuses, and such as an organized group that's carrying out a charitable activity. And we know that there are many organizations out there who don't fit those 3 or 4 basic categories of tax status that do wonderful charitable work. And we encourage you to continue to do that. If you do, just partner with an organization that is a 501c3, a religious organization, or a public college or university, or a unit of government. And then you'll be able to perhaps bring multiple resources to bear to do that. Active service requirement is something that's new. We are requiring that you be in service for a year for any community grants request. If you're a 501c3, that means you have to have received your 501c3 letter, determination letter, at least a year before the application deadline. If you are one of the other types of organizations we mentioned, then you just need to be in active service for over a year. Our service area has not changed. That's still Boone, Ogle, Winnebago, and Stevenson counties. You're looking at some of the things that we do fund in terms of specific items that we will fund. It might be easiest to take a look at that by looking at our new budget template. We want to show you our new budget template, and there's a number of pieces on there that do help us understand what will be funded. So let's take a look at that. All right, so as you can see, we do have an area up here where you can put in your basic information. And before I go any further, let me just mention that the blue areas are the only places that you can enter information in this template. And you do have to use this template. We're requiring usage of this template so that all of the budgets look the same and can be compared by our evaluators. So looking at this, you can see the top row that is right up here is the amount that's being requested from the Community Foundation in Northern Illinois in year 1, year 2, year 3, and there are fields here that will automatically calculate for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And over here you have the status of the requested amount, and in this, in the case of the Community Foundation, obviously this is requested at this point. It's not anything that's been confirmed or anything. So, and you can see that you do have a place for 3 years. If you are doing a multi-year request, you would put how much is needed for each year there. Okay. Now, drop down into the revenue area. Well, what you're requesting from the Community Foundation is revenue, so other areas of revenue. And those would be other grants that you're asking for. They would be earned income that you can allocate. It'd be budget dollars that you can allocate. any number of other resources that you would bring to bear on this. And you would explain what that is in the source, and you would indicate over here under the status what that status was for that particular request. And just real quick, let's take a look at some of the notes down here at the bottom, and we can see what those different statuses are. If it's received, you know, this is the best kind of income. You have it under your control. It is in your checking account. Pledged dollars are those that have been committed, but you've not yet received. Requested is such as the request that you're making from the community foundation. You've asked for it, but it's not been received, nor has it been pledged. And then another one that you'll see on the actual budget template that is on the website currently is estimated, and that's for situations where there's earned income, like admissions to a particular event or program service revenue, that sort of thing. Okay. Let's go back here, and you can see that at the bottom here, it's going to total the various categories up for you and total up your total proposal revenue. And this budget template is only for your proposal, not for your organization, but for this particular proposal. Okay, back to the expense area, set up very similarly. And you can see where you put your description. You have year 1, 2, and 3. And by the way, do not feel the need to apply for a multi-year grant. They are less likely to be funded than a single-year grant, but we offer them when it's important that there be funding at the beginning that lasts a few years to help get a program going, or there's a reason why multi-year funding is needed. So it needs to be compelling, is what I'm getting at. All right, and then at the far end here, on the far right, you have the expense request being classified. If it's classified as capital, then you need to indicate in that column the length of service in years that you anticipate that particular piece of capital, whether it's a building, piece of equipment, to be on the books as it's being depreciated. So, and you can see it calculates and everything. I want to take a look at the fine notes, or the fine print down here at the bottom, where we'll consider funding indirect costs. You know, we know that it takes dollars for the ancillary activities that your organization has to provide to be able to support a project, a program, or an event. So these indirect costs, we are willing to allow up to 15%. And our reviewers will look at it and see whether that amount seems appropriate given the activity that you're applying for. So I wouldn't necessarily just figure out what 15% is and put that in there. If that's what you need in order to do it, that's fine. And feel free to do that. But not in all cases would that be the case. And then also looking at a type of thing that we will now fund also is, as I've mentioned, the purchase or installation of assets that have a useful life greater than 1 year and that you will depreciate. So equipment we're very happy to help with. We're also happy to help with bricks and mortar. And again, there's the right-hand column there is a place where you would put the number of years you expected to be in service. Okay, moving on to some requirements that we have for community grants requests. You'll remember that with the multi-grant programs that we had before, you could submit a request to each grant program in a given grant cycle. Well, you now may submit multiple unique proposals in any given grant cycle to any number of focus areas. So we talked about our focus areas. You could submit one proposal to the arts and humanities, and you could submit another one to education, as long as those two projects are different than each other. They're not the same one being requested for. So you can do that now. And, you know, it could be multiple. You could put in as many as you want. Now, granted, there's a practical limit to how many you would receive. So we're not encouraging everyone to every grant cycle apply to every focus area. But you have the ability to do multiple focus areas, multiple requests, as long as they're unique. Again, we do offer multi-year grants for the reasons mentioned before. And those do have additional requirements. We have a progress report that has to come in between years, and then that has to be approved by the committee and the Community Foundations Board again before renewed funding is made. We also require that you be current on your interim, your progress, and your final reports. Interim reports are reports that you submit that just give us a quick update on a project that is still outstanding. And that's, you know, so that we know where the project is in its development before we make additional grants. The progress report is specific to multi-year grants. Those must be in, and they have due dates in before you're applying again. And then if it's a single-year grant, your final report must be in, unless there's a compelling reason why it wouldn't be, and that's where the interim report comes into play. We also are requiring a letter of support if you're working with a school district, and that's any school district that's within, well, that's any school district that you're working with. We'll want a letter of support. It used to be that we had a form that was specific to 4 of the larger school districts in our region, but we've broadened that to this letter of support that can be used with any of our school districts. Okay, those are some requirements. And I want to take a look at, and this is new, we're sharing with you the proposal review guidelines that our committee members use as they are reviewing these grant requests. And just quickly, so that you can understand how the selection process does work, is that we have experts that sit on committees that are surrounded around these various focus areas, and they review the applications that come into those focus areas. They then make a determination as to whether they feel that it's valuable to fund. And then we have another committee made up of board members that determines how many dollars are available to allocate to those requests. And then finally, our board of trustees of the Community Foundation then review and approve or decline requests that come in. So that's the oversight that is provided. But back to the committees. They're looking at fairly specific areas of a particular project, event, or program to determine whether or not they feel it should be funded. And so, as you can see, well, let me say this before I go further. On the application, you would see that there are various tabs, and there's questions in each of those tabs. Now, the first tab, the summary tab, is not scored at all. Our reviewers look at this information to give them context to read the rest of the application. The next tab is organizational capacity. This has questions in it that helps explain whether the organization has the capacity to carry out the project. Makes sense, right? So on that particular tab, that has what I call standard scoring. There's no weighting to that particular category. The community need area is where they're looking to see whether the charitable activity meets a need that is legitimate in the community, and and whether it appears that it would address it in a way that would be effective. And that's standard scoring for that tab as well. The proposal plan tab is where you put in all the information that really demonstrates how you're going to implement this project. Here we're weighting that ×2. The proposal plan is ×2. So it's a weighted area of scoring. The outcomes is where you describe what you hope to change, what that will look like, and how you're going to measure that. And that also is a priority area of scoring, and it would be ×2. So it's doubled for that category. The next area is the proposal budget, and that's using that form that we just talked about. But here we're looking to see whether the expenses that you've listed make sense and whether the revenue sources that you're seeking make sense. Is there solid funding behind this? So that area we give standard scoring to. And then the last bullet here is, and tab, is the grant agreement. Now, here again, it's not scored at all. That's just an area where you pre-agree, you just pre-agree that you would abide by certain pretty standard types of requirements that we have. Like you're going to use the dollars for charitable purposes. And that if you use it for any other reason, or if you want to use it for any other reason than what you've explained in the application, you're going to contact us. If there are any restrictions or contingencies that we need to request of you, that would be spelled out in another document that we will send out to you later. But the nice thing about this grant agreement being right on the grant application is that if you are recommended for funding, we can mail the check out to you immediately. We don't have to send you a document to sign as an agreement and send that back. So we can get that money out there much more quickly. So that's looking at the proposal review guidelines. Let's see here. We have always like to talk about the Carol H. Starr Endowment Challenge, because this is an opportunity for nonprofit organizations to develop their capacity to serve their clients by developing an endowment that that they can use in any way that they feel best support their mission. So this is a really great program. Well, in the summer is when we'll be offering it again, and we offer this routinely. And we've had many organizations come through this program at this point, and millions of dollars worth of endowments developed through this program. But what happens is that for every $3 the organization raises, the community foundation will contribute $1, and that's up to $50,000. So you can develop a $200,000 endowment through the Carol H. Starr Endowment Challenge. So keep your ears open for the announcement of the next round of the Carol H. Starr Endowment Challenge. And let's see, we'll go to our final slide here. One thing I do want to mention before I end this program is that if you apply and you are not accepted for some reason, please don't think that no means no forever. We routinely receive over 50 proposals per cycle, oftentimes adding up to more than $1 million in requests in any given cycle. We don't have that amount each cycle to give out. We usually have about 1.1 million per year, so half of that per cycle. So our committees really do have to make some very tough choices, and oftentimes that means funding something that also was very worthwhile. So we encourage you to apply again. All right, well, that's all I have for you today, and appreciate you taking the time to listen to this presentation. And certainly you always can reach out to us as you're working on your applications if you have questions. Thank you.